caught me at a very funny moment where here I am listening to some people, some Democrats there in on Capitol Hill who are saying that Republicans are in free fall. Like, are you sure about that? I can tell you this: they're definitely not in free fall in the state of Florida. How are you today, sir?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on. And that it is comical to juxtapose what it is we do in Tallahassee versus what we see coming out of DC at times. I think one of the really interesting points about this time of year is that not only is it the beginning of a new federal administration, but it's the beginning of the start of legislative session at the state level. And I think that only highlights how different the things are that we're doing. One of the things we're doing that's very similar is I think we were doing a lot of Doge related stuff before Doge was cool.
Yeah.
We've been moving some bills to increase government efficiency and effectiveness. And I think that's highlighted by a bill I passed today out of Fiscal Policy Committee.
So I know that there's been a little bit of budget talk going on. Finally, I am fiscally conservative and always concerned about certain things when it comes to the budget, especially when it comes to making sure that for a rainy day or a serious hurricane day, as it were, that we are prepared, that we are flexible, that we are able to pivot and move because we have been good stewards of our tax dollars. Maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the budget talk that's going on right now.
Yeah, we have been really big proponents for a number of years over making sure we have enough money for what we call, the economists here in the state of Florida call black swan events. These are events that were unexpected, very hard to predict, but we know once every now and again happen. Typically, it's used to describe things like giant hurricanes, or it's sometimes, in the late 90s, we had wildfires out in eastern central Florida. There are some things that happen once every 10, 20 years that we simply need a lot of money for. And one of the things that's very encouraging about being a Floridian is that there have been twice actually, in the last 15 years, Florida has had a higher bond rating than the United States. Because of our commitment to fiscal responsibility, we are seen as a less risky investment at times than the U.S. Treasury bond. And so that speaks volumes to what it is we do with any extra cash we tend to put away just to make sure that our communities, when you do have those events, have the resources necessary to be able to recover quickly. I think it was highlighted incredibly by the poor folks in Western North Carolina, who still aren't even recovered. We have a lot of times that a hurricane is coming through and there are trucks outside your neighborhood waiting to get your power back on in Florida as soon as the hurricane passes. And so those are the kinds of things planning wise. I think one of the advantages we have is we get a ton of practice, which is not great, but it is good so that you have confidence as a Floridian that not only are the resources going to be there, but we continue to plan for that in the future.
Right. And knowing that when something does happen, that we are learning from it. We see where the resources needed to be, what we could have done better. And then the next time, hopefully, we don't have an issue with whatever we had there at that moment in time. So that's always
one of the
good.
things we've learned in the last several hurricanes is that we don't have to wait to contact other states to get help for power trucks to come into our state.
Right.
Having as much of a reserve as we do, we know we're going to need them. We forward pay them, and we have them drive in and park outside your neighborhood. So those trucks go through the hurricane with us and drive right into your neighborhood as soon as the storm passes. Versus other communities that say, well, let's see how bad it's going to be, and then and then the storm passes, and then they call other states, and then it takes a week to get trucks into your state. We learn every time we go through these what's the best way to take care of our citizens.
Right. So what's been going on now? You mentioned something about what you signed yesterday and some other things that are going on there with regard to the budget. Tell me a little bit more about what's going on with that.
Once every 4 years, we are statutorily required to get together what's called a government efficiency task force in the state of Florida. The governor gets appointees, the president of the Senate gets appointees, and the Speaker of the House gets appointees. I was put on that government efficiency task force again this year, and we went through to see what is it we can do to help make government run more efficient and more effectively. And one of the things we came out with as a recommendation is to amend our long-range program plans, which there's a fancy way of saying every agency is supposed to produce an annual, almost like a work plan. If anybody has a job, you should have a document that says, here's what you're supposed to do, and here's the measurements of what good looks like. We do them every year, but we don't really use them. I think they would be most useful at the beginning of a new governor's administration, right? All of the plans, all of the things you want to accomplish at every one of the individual agencies, it would be great to have that in a document that says, here's our roadmap, and we're going to know if we're successful if we hit metrics A, B, and C. What this bill does that I have is it redoes some of those metrics. We haven't updated this plan in 20 years, which means, the internet was in the beginning of its infancy. Probably 30 years ago is really the last time it got updated. And so what are the metrics that mean something for us now, assuming we get data a lot better and faster and more precise than we ever used to? And so this changes the long-range program plans to make agencies every year say, these are the 5 things that are important to me. And the legislature has said, here are the metrics we want to see too. And some of those are just like a nonprofit would calculate its percentage of admin overhead versus what it does for programming. We want to know in every agency, how much are you spending on salaries and how much are you spending delivering services?
Good.
That's an important metric.
Yeah.
That can be done across all agencies. We are asking the agencies, how much do you spend on outside legal counsel? It should be that the Attorney General does all of our legal work at the state. But every agency we review has all this money going to outside legal efforts.
Huh.
Is that a big deal? Is that what we should be doing? Is it more efficient? We would like to know and be able to compare across agencies. What does that look like? And so for us, we said, these are the things we want to know. And then in the bill, we also said to the agencies, you pick 5 things that you think are important to you that we can look at every year. And what that does is it gives some flexibility, because I would posit that what's important in delivering at the Department of Corrections has nothing to do with the Department of Transportation. And so we would want input from that agency to say, what is it in your industry that you find to be a really credible or good metric that we should be looking at too? And so that bill went through fiscal policy today. I expect it to get to the floor relatively soon. And then that way we can actually produce a document somebody might use, because every year we discover these documents that we force these agencies to report, and they drop them on our desk and nobody reads them.
Right.
And so if we're not doing anything with them, we might as well not make them do them.
Good. That's fair. Well, listen, I know you're busy. We're going to run here on Florida's Voice, but I'll tell you what, I love the work you're doing. I love that you're digging in, and the details are always great to hear. So it's always appreciated that you have a few minutes to join us here on Florida's Voice. So thanks so much. We'll see you soon. Okay.
Thank you, my friend. We'll see you soon.
All right. We'll see you. That is State Senator Pro Tem Jason Brody.